Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Anything Joe's, a collaborative journey through the world of G.I. Joe. My name is Greg Engel.
And I'm Jaron Decker.
And we'll be your host today. Today on Anything Joe's, we're back on the Real American Hero grind with G.I. Joe number 16. Jaron, it's been quite the holiday season for us. Before we get into the comic, tell me a little bit about your holiday time. Did you get any good presents? Did you get any good toys? See any interesting places? I know you traveled a bit.
Yeah, so when that frozen tundra was coming in for Christmas, my family made an exodus down to Florida. And my tradition, I'm sure you have your travel traditions, but anytime I go anywhere, I like to go to a local comic shop. It's just something I've done since my honeymoon, and that's just been a thing I do. So went to Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and there's a comic shop called TBS Comics. I was scoping it out. I was scoping out different comic shops in the area, and in one of the pictures on Google was someone had taken a picture of a Terrordrome just above where all the comics were. And I was like, well, I have to go to this comic shop now. And let me tell you, it's probably my favorite comic shop that I've been in. It's just, it made me want my local comic shop to actually be good even more than I've already do. So the most impressive thing was that it was a lot of vehicles. So the comic shop had everything you would expect from a normal comic shop, but it also had almost this entire collection of G.I. Joe. It was absolutely impressive. So above where the comics were on one whole row, there was a bunch of small vehicles, but on the far left side was the Defiant. And then there was a bunch of vehicles in the middle, and then in the middle was the between that, and then there's the Terrordrome, and then on the far right was a USS Flag with a bunch of stuff. All over the ceiling, there were hanging ships. You were seeing Mambas and, all the different planes, helicopters, and things like that would fly. It was a very Joe-friendly comic shop. And then as a comic shop, it was also just absolutely incredible. It was well organized. It was clean. It smelled good. I took all my kids in there and they got comics. It was really impressive. So I would highly recommend checking it out if you're in the area.
Do you know what the TBS stands for?
I don't. If you give me a second, I can see if it says it on their Facebook.
Maybe they're just really big fans of repeats of The Office. now airing on TBS.
I don't see anything that says it, but
did you buy anything while you were there?
Yeah, so I didn't buy any Joes. I should have, but Winterfest is so soon, and I didn't want to buy any Joes and then risk not buying anything at Winterfest and not having anything to talk about. But I bought a couple comics. I bought a Shazam's first appearance in DC Comics, Shazam 1 from 1973. One of my favorite comic book characters.
Awesome book, yeah.
Yeah, great, awesome book, great character. And then I bought a cover to it. It was a random Batman book. It was Batman Beyond the White Knight. It was a variant cover, but it was made to mimic the Death in the Family cover.
Oh, cool.
So it was using the White Knight, which is my favorite new design of the Batman suit, with Batman Beyond, who is absolutely amazing. But it also had callbacks to Death in the Family. So it was a really cool comic cover. So I bought that. And then I bought my kids. My daughter's name's Ivy, so I bought her a Poison Ivy comic book. And then bought my other kids whatever comic they picked out. But it was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love going to, a new comic book shop because you never know. It's just like going to a G.I. Joe show. You never know what somebody's going to have in stock at this random place.
Yeah, they had some really impressive and really high dollar books in their case. And I didn't feel like my wife, hitting me the entire drive back to Indiana.
Yeah, that's what Winterfest is for. Well, that's awesome, buddy. I'm glad you had a good holiday. I did the exact opposite of that. I didn't leave my house. I left work early when the snow started because most people were afraid of getting stuck at work, which would be a nightmare. And then from then on, I basically I almost didn't leave my couch for the next 4 or 5 days consecutively.
That sounds phenomenal, though. Really.
Yeah, actually, it's got its own merit. All right, so let's dive into G.I. Joe number 16 and see what kind of trouble our boys are getting into.
Hello, boys and girls. This is your Peter Pan storyteller. When you hear this signal,
This I command!
turn the page. All right, here we go. G.I. Joe.
The cover to G.I. Joe number 16 is got a lot of action going on. You know, most people focus on the primary drama that's going on around top. What we've got here is Destro and Hawk are in a fist/gunfight. You know, they're at point blank range with each other, and Hawk has got his hand on Destro's hand. He's forcing his gun up in the air as it's firing. Meanwhile, Hawk has kind of got his arm in a similar position. It's behind Destro's back, and it's firing. Both of these guys incapable of shooting someone at point blank range. That's a common thread I seem to see a lot. They're supposed to be on a HISS tank, although the design of this HISS tank has clearly been altered for this confrontation. There's nowhere to stand on the back of a HISS tank like this. The geometry of this tank is pretty off-putting, especially when you look at the turret. Like, if you think of a HISS tank, the turret is essentially the only spot on the top of a HISS tank where you can stand, and yet somehow Cobra Commander is behind the turret drawing a gun on Hawk. I don't know where he's supposed to. It's almost like he's standing in the driver's seat, but you can't see the canopy. I don't really know what's going on. So there's a little bit of logistical nightmaring going on here. There's a random toolbox sitting there also, as if they were going to do repairs in the middle of battle. The Cobra logo is askew a little bit, just kind of is like hand drawn, and it looks a little, I don't know, it looks a little goofy. In the background, something I don't normally notice is you see the kind of a silhouette of the skyline. There's lots of planes flying overhead. There's the smoke, just like massive destruction happening somewhere in the background. I don't really normally pay attention to those details. I like the idea of this cover, but there really are a lot of things that are kind of wrong with it altogether. Hawk's arm is being held by Destro's other arm, I guess kind of like pinched back, but you can only see Destro's elbow, so the like anatomy of how that's happening is kind of difficult. I don't love this cover, and that's really rare and difficult for me to say because I like the cover so much. I like the concept of this cover, but the actual execution I feel like is lacking a little bit. What are your thoughts on the cover to issue 16?
Well, first off, I think Cobra Commander is like a time traveler because he's standing on the access panel to the classified HISS tank that they gave us. You know, it has that little ladder. That's what he's standing on. But no, I agree. Everything's just a little wonky. I don't know if those are supposed to be clouds behind the skyline or if that's also smoke, but it just looks a little muddled back there. I wish they would have at least given us like a clear design on any of the airplanes. I know that's a little much to expect in something so small, but like they look just almost like a real vehicle, but not actually like a real vehicle. And then I have to say, is Cobra Commander using Megatron? Like that, does that gun look like Megatron to you or no?
Other than the stock, I would say, yeah, it's like the scope and the design. It's really boxy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if there was some influence there.
Maybe this is the beginning of the crossover.
That's right. The crossover you didn't know happened. It's all off panel. Look for 16.5 where we see Cobra Commander's monologue with Megatron. Okay, so let's dive into this issue and see what's happening. G.I. Joe number 16, Night Attack. So we open on a large panel where we're seeing multiple Joe vehicles all on a battlefield. We see Rock and Roll in the Ram Cycle. I can see Steeler in the Mobat. I see Clutch and Scarlet on it could be the Vamp 2 because it's kind of tan colored, or it could just be a mist colored regular Vamp. And then for the first time ever, I think, is the Dragonfly. I thought maybe we saw this in 11 when we first saw Wild Bill, but now that I'm seeing the actual design of the plane, I'm thinking maybe this is the first time we've actually seen it drawn correctly. So we've got all these guys barreling in one direction. Every vehicle is firing, and they're all kind of talking amongst themselves.
Way to go, Airborne! You just racked up 2 Cobra HISS tanks and a pillbox.
Thanks, Wild Bill. Now, if those mud turtles on the ground could get a hustle on, maybe we could mop up the rest of these targets and get back in time for chow.
Do you hear those creeps up there? The air support is always trying to steal our thunder.
Let's lay on the combined firepower and waste that whole row of his tanks. So they're all diving in towards some vehicles. On the very next panel, we see that the targets that they are destroying are actually just like probably not cardboard, but they're kind of like carnival stand-ups where you just like shoot them and they bing, knock over. Although they've been laying these to waste. Hawk's got a clipboard and a pencil, and it looks like he's checking off like things that they're supposed to be doing on this, I guess, this target practice run.
We did it. We knocked out a whole row.
Yeah, but Hawk just popped up another row each of pillboxes and hiss tanks. Man, this target range is trickier than a real Cobra attack. That's 8 out of 10 targets on the last series. Close, but almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. It's a classic military term that I learned from this book and used a lot. I remember they used this in a MASH episode a lot also, and it has stuck with me over the years.
Yeah, my dad uses this terminology still. Like, it's...
Yeah.
And I think it's mostly because he liked the show MASH, but he was also in the service, so maybe it's a little bit of both, but...
I guess this is... Yeah, here he is with the clipboard. Next panel, Hawk is on top of the APC, and he's pointing up in the air. We have to upgrade the G.I. Joe armor defeating capability. Breaker, roll out the radio-controlled hiss tanks. Set them all for random evasion and high-speed offense. Breaker with his bubble gum and a comically large transmitter that has 3 buttons on it. You want it, you got it, Hawk. 10 hiss tanks rolling out. You could see 10 hiss tanks basically all lined up in formation rolling over the hills as our Joes are, got their guns engaged on it already. Looks like we're outnumbered and outgunned. Veer right. We'll flank them and try for their thinner side armor. That frontal armor's too thick for anything but the main tank gun. Another panel of Hawk with his fingers in the air. Put the Wolverine in. Let's take back the offensive. Big Breaker is like sitting on top of a big heap of it's camouflage, but it's supposed to be kind of like a mossy hill or something to that effect. It actually kind of stands out quite considerably amongst the sand. He jumps off of this hill. You heard the man. Roll out the Wolverine.
I was taking a nap, Breaker. This is spoiling my beauty sleep.
The camouflage starts to draw back, and we see the Wolverine come out from underneath, missiles in the air.
But I suppose if you really want 10 hiss tanks knocked out, a Wolverine tank with a dozen Stinger missiles is just the thing for the job. 5 vertical panels as we see the Wolverine maneuvering around the battlefield, using those missiles just to the fullest extent. Target. All 10 hiss tanks just completely obliterated in a clean, effective sweeping motion. The smoke is clearing as the Joes gather around the Wolverine.
Phew. Knocked out all 10 tanks and still had 4 missiles to spare.
Some shooting, eh, rock and roll? Looks like we got ourselves a new hotshot. Might even be good enough to charm up old Scarlet here.
Clutch, compared to you, a dead skunk is charming.
Top of the Wolverine opens up, and who should pop out but everyone's favorite other female G.I. Joe, CoverGirl. CoverGirl here has got, brown hair. She's wearing her jacket. She looks like she's like blowing her on her nail, like drying her nails or something. A pretty classic, we don't see a lot of CoverGirl overall, so it's cool to see her here. I get that the reveal was supposed to be, whoa, a woman driver? But, of course, we would expect nothing less, being very familiar with the Wolverine at this point.
Well, I should certainly hope I'm more charming than a dead skunk.
CoverGirl, meet Rock and Roll, Scarlet, and Clutch.
That was you took out 10 tanks? Some piece of work. Glad to have you on the team.
Keeping your cool to fire at targets that don't shoot back on a practice range is one thing. A firefight tends to put fire in your belly, molasses on your reflexes, and a dead letter stamp on your judgment. Let's reserve our judgment till we see how she holds up in a real battle.
Better than your face has, dearie.
Sheesh. Brutal. So catty. Woof. Chalk one up for CoverGirl.
I just realized something. You only fired 8 missiles, but 10 tanks were...
She didn't neutralize all 10 tanks. I disposed of the 4th and 6th tanks. I just waited until the fur was flying, snuck up behind them suckers, and slapped on a couple of magnetic-shaped charges.
Somebody comes strolling out of all the smoke on the battlefield.
You can call me Tripwire. I'm the new explosive ordnance specialist around here. Defusions, excavations, pyrotechnics, and light removals. Just call on.
Whoop! Tripwire trips, and his backpack full of mines slips out of his hand. At the last second, it falls into Rock and Roll's hands.
What is this? Carrying case for oversized hockey pucks?
These mines.
I know they're yours.
Classic corny joke book joke right there. So, yeah, here's your boy, Tripwire. I can't imagine there would be a whole lot of people that you're more excited to see than that. Sure enough, also, if you back up a page and look at the Wolverine in battle, there are 2 tanks that she doesn't shoot a missile at. So they did their homework. They wrote it in that he put some shaped charge mines on them.
I know they're yours, but you should be careful just the same. They could have been damaged.
Or gone off.
Huh?
Breaker puts his hand up to the team. Message from headquarters. They figured out where Cobra's striking next. Elsewhere, different than our usual Cobra outlook here, we were actually at kind of a very fancy dinner hall. There's they got a nice chandelier. They're all sitting at a nice fancy wooden table. And by all, I mean Cobra Commander, Destro, Baroness, Dr. Venom, who's finally back from his mission. Major Blood has joined them as an effective member of the team. And even Scarface has a seat at the table, which is kind of crazy because he hasn't done anything amazing. He just is called a Cobra officer. I love this candelabra too. They have a 5-headed, like 5 snakes, and they're all at the top of each snake. There's a spot for a candle, which I think is very nice. And so, let us officially welcome the new star of our Cobra constellation. A fearless fighter, a skilled tactician, a published poet, Major Sebastian Blood. Blood lifts his glass for the toast and recites what he's most well known for, which is his bad poetry.
Raise your glasses and sing the praises of our leader who nothing phases. Cobra Commander, he's my chum. I'd rust him like I'd rust my gun.
Okay, so this is something that I was not familiar with. I did not know that Major Blood was a cheesy poet.
Yeah, Major Blood loves his bad poetry, and also Tripwire is notoriously known for being very clumsy, which is ironic considering how sensitive his job is.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about Tripwire. Is he's like, yeah, he does really good things, but also he could just kill everyone on accident.
6 small vertical panels at the very bottom of this page that shows each individual person from Cobra and what their inner monologue is at this point. Thank you, Major Blood. I'm touched. Inner monologue. He's a despicable bootlicker. Everything that Destro isn't. And that's why he must destroy Destro for me. Major Blood.
Well. Our job is a job, but it just seems a dead waste to terminate a fellow like Destro whilst letting live spineless leeches like Scarface.
Scarface.
Was I wrong in siding with Destro? Is Major Blood the Commander's new favorite?
Destro.
Even through this mask of stainless steel, I fear my face betrays me. Does the Commander suspect my feelings for the Baroness? Will he act against me first, or her?
Dr. Venom.
Both Destro and Cobra Commander are preoccupied in forcing me to choose between them. It's distracting them from the real menace, Dr. Venom.
And lastly, Baroness.
So many contradictory plots and ambitions. How can I use them to my advantage?
So literally nobody at the table is like, how do we take over the world? Everybody's just like, how do I play this off to become more powerful in this organization? Cobra comrades, I propose a toast to victory through unity. Back to G.I. Joe headquarters. General Flag and Hawk are in a private debriefing area. General Flag, our boys have identified the ink we found in the Cobra lab in Vermont, which is back from G.I. Joe number 14. It's the same ink used to print United States currency. Also present at the site were apparatuses commonly used in the handling of biological toxins. There is every reason to believe that Cobra intends to poison American money at the source, the Bureau of Printing and Engraving. Assign me enough troops to throw a cordon around the Treasury buildings, and I can scoop up Cobras as they...
That's a negative, Hawk. Cobra has threatened to blow up the Capitol building. All available troops are earmarked for defensive duties. No exceptions. The government is keeping this whole thing under wraps to avoid a public panic, but they are not about to be taking any chances. Besides, the Treasury threat may be the diversion, and the real target may just be the Capitol after all. You really can't blame the brass for trying to cover their own tails in this mess. And Hawk, if I were you, I'd cover myself as well.
I will, General Flagg. Back at the Cobra dinner party.
I trust you've inspected all the toxin vials personally, Dr. Venom.
Of course. Those germs are like my children.
Major Blood and Scarface have some inner monologue, even though they're standing right beside each other.
Scarface is lucky. If I wasn't knocking off Distro tonight, it would be Scarface laid out on the morgue slab instead.
Scarface thinks,
I wonder who Major Blood really works for.
I don't know why Major Blood has such a hatred for Scarface. They've literally just met, as far as I know. He just doesn't like them. He's like, this guy can't even have an original outfit. Get out of here. Distro and Baroness are talking off to the side of the panel.
Don't look at me like that. The commander must never suspect. He must not notice anything between us until...
Until what?
Keep your voice down.
You're not answering my question.
Back to Cobra Commander and Dr. Venom's discussion.
Permit me to remind you, Cobra Commander, that I shall carry this plague toxin project to its conclusion, not for your sake, but simply because I like to finish what I start. I have not forgotten that it was under orders from you that I was left for dead in that sunken bunker with Snake Eyes and Quinn.
Scarface and Major Blood are noticing the discussion beside them.
That Dr. Venom sure gives me the creeps, but I'm glad he's on our side. Sure wouldn't want him to shoot me up with that plague toxin of his.
I'll bet you wouldn't.
Now, Dr. Venom, you are permitting emotion to rule where intellect should reign. You shouldn't hold it against me for taking steps most advantageous to myself. Shall I open the blinds and let some light in?
It's your dinner party. Do what you will.
Cobra Commander presses a button and the blinds slide open.
The sun is setting, Dr. Venom. Just as the sun is setting forever on the stability of the American dollar.
We see now that the dinner that they are having is in the back of a truck. It's an Arbco branded truck. Can you imagine pouring wine in a truck that's on its way to Washington, D.C.? That place would be sloppy messed.
A stability that shall be irreparably damaged by events we shall engineer this evening. Scarface, have the planes been launched yet?
Yes, Cobra Commander, they are en route to target now.
Excellent.
It shows they are passing by a Washington, D.C. 150 miles away sign, so you know that they're closing in on where they're headed. Speaking of Washington, D.C., we'll cut there now as the Joes have started to set up some defensive capabilities. No disrespect intended, General Flagg. If this is what you meant by keeping things under wraps, your kids must not be very surprised at Christmas time. There are troops everywhere, military guys loaded for bear, all kinds of tanks and guys in gear pointing and shouting. You've got the entire Virginia National Guard out here in full battle kit. I see airborne rangers from Fort Bragg, armor from Knox, intelligence honchos from Holabird, and a 76-piece band from Fort Dix. If you were to loan me a small battalion, nobody would even miss them. We could set up a perimeter around the Treasury building and take a lot of heat off my Joes.
No, Hawk. The defense of the Capitol is top priority.
Rain is pouring down all over him. You've got Hawk and General Flagg talking. There's a guy behind him that's looking up in the air. Sir, won't you reconsider? If Cobra does hit the Treasury building, the Joe team is in there with no support.
The Joes are supposed to be capable of operating for protracted periods with no support at all.
This guy that's looking up in the air suddenly points. Take cover, Cobra aircraft coming in low and fast. We see lots of planes up in the air as a silhouette. Meanwhile, over at the Treasury building, the Arbco is pulled up at the very front door.
The other trucks are in position. Pull up in back of this dumpster and park. We've arrived, Dr. Venom. You may initiate phase 1 of Operation Night Attack.
Dr. Venom steps off the back of the truck. Scarface is right there beside him.
Guard my back, Scarface. The two specialists in front of us will take care of the door.
Scarface shields his face as the explosion goes off and the door comes off its hinges.
And any guards that are foolish enough to bother us.
Cobra officers storm in the front. They start mowing down the guards that are inside. they're in the building immediately. They've got Cobra officers there. Dr. Venom opens the briefcase on top of some barrels.
Scarface, send those two louts on to the presses and have them pry loose the plates for $20 bills. The plate theft will be our cover to divert suspicion from the ink.
You heard the doc. Get those plates.
Yes, sir.
With the new time delay toxin, the evil effects won't be noticeable for weeks. Then, everybody who has handled the contaminated money will start dropping like flies. We could kill millions!
Back at the Capitol.
Some diversion, huh? Look at this. They're dropping half a regiment on us.
This is unbelievable, sir. Even Cobra wouldn't.
Wouldn't? They're darn well doing it, aren't they?
Flag picks up a radio communications kit.
Patch me through to Central Comm Link. I want all available units on immediate alert and standing by to move into the Capitol area.
Inside the Treasury building, this is a very infamous panel because it shows our good buddy Torpedo, who has been tasked to deal with Dr. Venom and his associates, has shown up in full scuba gear, mask, harpoon gun, and flippers. Probably the least agile you could. You could not dress any more inappropriately for this. It's just like they won't know which toy to buy if he's not wearing his full gear. I've even seen defense that they're dealing with toxins, an oxygen tank is makes sense. Okay, sure. And he uses his harpoon gun on this page, so I'll give it that. But the flippers, I'm not going to fly with that. There's just no defending that.
Can you imagine the sound? Just that
right?
Flop, flop, flop,
What's
flop.
that sound? Did they recruit walruses into the G.I. Joe team? Unless he falls in a barrel of ink and can't swim his way out of it, there's no defense for wearing these flippers inside. So Torpedo's up on this, kind of like a catwalk up above them. Tripwire and Gung Ho are on the ground level and have sprung up to surprise them.
All right, Cobras, surrender or...
One of the guards turns around right away and starts firing. Ambush. Props to this guy. Actually, the first guy to get the shot off is this regular Cobra dude. He misses. I mean, it's Stormtrooper logic, but he's still got Greedo shoots first vibes. It's the G.I. Joe team. Drill him. Guy that says drill him is the guy that gets the harpoon right in the chest. Ugh, he is gone. I couldn't think of a more brutal way to get killed. Poor dude. And it's probably, that harpoon's probably not getting reloaded anytime soon, so.
I love the fact that he uses a harpoon gun, which should be a very quiet weapon, but he's still flopping around in a wetsuit. Like, it's just a giant contradiction.
Yeah, it looks like he has dropped down on the catwalk to avoid fire from beneath, although you could also just say he trips and falls on his flippers. Thanks, Tripwire. Keep these jokers buttoned down so I can get to better cover.
Cover guard, this is Gung Ho. We have a small firefight situation inside, but the outlook is optimistic.
Copy that, loud and clear. And maintaining cover position for time being, over. Rock and roll, did you copy last transmission?
Rock and Roll and Zap are set up on top of a building. Zap's got his bazooka out and ready to roll. Roger that. Zap and I have the anti-tank missile concession on the roof of the Treasury building, and it looks like business is going to be hot tonight. Dr. Venom is pulling something out of his briefcase.
Cobra Commander claimed he had a foolproof diversion. Now everything is falling apart. But I won't let this toxin go to waste. I'll blast it all over the presses.
He's got like a classic, dynamite with a timer on it, and he's also got his well-known Luger. No wrench, of course, his true weapon of choice.
And just in case these lackeys have orders to retrieve the toxin...
And shoots one of the other officers in the back. Dr. Venom's just ruthless, man.
You too, Scarface! You thought I forgot about you firing the missile that blew up my bunker? Ha! Dr. Venom never forgets.
Clocks him on the back of the head. And I guess he just didn't bring his wrench today. That's what I love about Dr. Venom. Dr. Venom is very just cutthroat. Like, he just has no loyalty at all. They keep coming back to him because in a pre-Mindbender age, he's a man of science that actually has a lot of uses. He's a great character. I really do love Dr. Venom a lot. Back to the Capitol. The planes were radio-controlled scale models, and the paratroopers were toys. We've been duped. There never was an attack on the Capitol. He's holding up, like, basically a G.I. Joe toy. Would be what the equivalent of is. He's got, like, a little parachute. If this was the diversion, then the real target is the Treasury. Let's move it out, Clutch. Shouldn't we wait for reinforcements? No, General Flagg was right in a way. We're the G.I. Joes. We don't need anybody else's help. We take care of our own. They peel out in the vamp with Scarlet on the back. This is another really good shot where it shows how a person that would gun the vamp would kind of be situated. Not sitting, not even on the pegs that would be on the back. They actually stand on the top of the back of the vamp. I don't think the height of the gun would match up there, but I'm always interested in how, you know, the geometry of vehicles work in the comics. Just like the His tank on the cover being a little misconstrued. I always get a kick out of stuff like that as well. Back to the Treasury, Dr. Venom is walking out of the exit, got his briefcase in hand.
Cobra, Commander, it was a trap! The Joes have taken control inside.
Blast! Destro, give the order to initiate Phase 2.
Zap fires off his bazooka. Looks like it's about time to see what an anti-tank missile can do to an 18-wheeler. It hits the convoy truck right in the front with a big explosion. Not bad. Might have been more interesting if it had been a gas tanker, but que sera, sera. Destro, Baroness, Major Blood Commander, the Cobra Commander are piling out of the destroyed truck.
They were lucky. They almost got us all. Command truck is.
Forget it. Destro rides with me. Blood rides with the Baroness. It's time to unleash the His tanks.
The rest of these ARBCO pickup trucks are the backs of them open up and His tanks come rolling out, guns ablazing. Inside the Treasury building, Tripwire, Torpedo, and Gung Ho are taking stock of what's left over. Very quiet out there. Either everyone is out for the count, or they've taken their ball and gone home.
Just the same, don't bunch up, but watch your backs.
Don't touch any of those Cobras. They might be booby. Whoa!
Tripwire falls over something.
Fall over your own feet again, Tripwire.
No, it's Scarface. Is he dead?
Gung Ho grabs him by the scuff and slaps him across the face.
No, just play a possum. Wake up, sugar cakes. Nappy time should be over.
Don't move, Gung Ho.
Huh?
It's a bomb. Time to lay fuse.
Scarface starts to wake up and looks over and sees it.
Dr. Venom, that dirty rat.
Nothing to worry about. It's a cinch to disarm.
Scarface kicks loose from Gung Ho's grip.
I'm splitting this joint.
Come back here, you. Oof. Gung Ho, the wall is crumbling. His tanks with the Commander and Baroness have blown through the side of the wall, and they have our three Joes at gunpoint.
Drop your weapons. There is no point in further resistance.
It's Destro and Cobra Commander himself in the driver's seat.
And I'll bet that's the Baroness driving the second tank, but who's manning the turret? Obviously, they haven't met Major Blood yet, so this is their first introduction.
Major Blood, would you be so kind as to retrieve Dr. Venom's handiwork from that drum of ink?
My pleasure, Cobra Commander. Nice of these chaps to disarm it for us. Why are we taking it back? I thought...
If the toxin is analyzed by the Joes, it will be useless to us for future operations.
They are marching the three Joes out. They've got their hands up. They've surrendered.
These three Joes are a constant threat and danger to us. I advise termination with extreme prejudice.
Termination with extreme prejudice? What's that mean?
It means the bullet don't care what color you are.
That's a little... we talk a little bit about the maturity of a G.I. Joe book, and I think that's another thing to point out. That, first of all, termination with extreme prejudice is a real phrase. Second of all, it's just like, yes, they will kill you no matter what.
Yeah.
No, Destro, we may need them as hostages. The evening is not over yet.
Over the radio, we hear...
Cover girl, this is Zap. I have visual contact with our three lost lambs. They are leaving the building to your right. Uh-oh, you've got two more His tanks moving up on your left. I suggest taking out the two on the left first, since the two coming out of the building can't rotate their turrets till they clear the corner.
I hear you, Zap, and I'm taking the first two on the run.
So the disguise of this garbage truck, not to be confused with the ARBCO trucks that Cobra's using, they have their own disguise stuff. Do you know how hard it would be to fit a Wolverine inside this trash truck? Which is filled with real trash also. So it bursts out the front of this trash truck, and she fires missiles right away.
I hear you zap, and I'm taking the first 2 on the run.
2 instant hits. Like, Cover Girl is just spot on. She knows how to use the vehicle that is hers. Both his tanks explode. The Joes start running over to her.
Cover Girl, you never looked so good.
Cover Girl is picking trash off of herself. She throws a banana peel off.
Or smelled this bad. PU. Hop on board and make yourselves useful by helping me reload those missile tubes.
Let's reload on the road. His tanks are moving in all around us. We see, besides the 2 his tanks coming out of the building with our Cobra VIPs, we see 2 more tanks coming in from behind. On the next panel, we can see a total of 3, 4, 5, about 6 his tanks, and they've all swiveled to fire on her. So they're in pretty dire straits. Cover Girl fires a missile, and this is her first miss that I can tell. She just barely misses one of the his tanks in front of her.
Too late. We're trapped. Scarlet was right. A real firefight is totally unforgiving.
Calm down, Cover Girl. Keep firing. Take them out one at a time. Don't worry about the missiles. We'll keep loading. Zap and Rock and Roll are trying to provide assistance from the top of the building still. There's too many of them, Rock and Roll. We can't nail them all. The Wolverine has had it. In additional fire support, we've got Airborne and Wild Bill up ahead. Interesting note about the Dragonfly here. The way that the Dragonfly is supposed to be positioned, the actual real vehicle, is that the pilot sits in the secondary seat, the back seat, not the front seat, which is how I would have always played with it as a kid, not realizing, the logistics of this piece of, I've never seen a chopper like this, so I had no idea. But it is drawn correctly here. Wild Bill's in the back, Airborne is in the front.
Look like too many to you, Airborne, old pard.
Not by a long shot, Wild Bill. They start lighting up tanks and blowing them up from up above. We see Gung Ho prepping a missile to relaunch in the Wolverine. How's this for cavalry to the rescue? That don't play on my reservation. There's still 2 his tanks left. I can see that. Help me load. Cobra Commander is communicating with the other people from inside the his tank.
That G.I. Joe missile tank is blocking our escape route. Flank it and destroy it. Destro, I'll take them on the left.
And I've got the right.
Cover Girl has kind of got her mojo back after doubting herself on the battlefield.
Here comes the cleanup. I'm glad I warmed up for this.
Cobra Commander sends a secret message to the other his tank.
Now, Major Blood, while Destro is concentrating on the fight, terminate him.
Really poor timing if you're going to do some backstabbing in the middle of a battle against your enemies. Surely there's a better way to I don't know. Well, hey, we're going to deviate a little bit here, Jaron, because this is not something that I've occurred. Do you think all Cobra we'll say VIPs, do you think Cobra VIPs stay at Cobra headquarters? Do you think all these guys sleep at the same location?
I feel like the way my version of Cobra Commander is he doesn't let them stay there. He has like different guest houses like far away that are just absolutely trashy. Then he makes them stay at.
Prior to Cobra Island, we never really see any concrete like Cobra based stuff. It always looks a little different to me. And, other than Springfield, which is definitely not where they're at, or at least I don't think, I've always, thinking, Major Blood needs to kill him, just go to where he sleeps and shoot him or poison him. Don't try to take him out in the middle of a firefight where you're, going to shut down half of the force that you're going in the middle of a battle. Doesn't seem like a great logistical plan. But I guess it's supposed to show just how much this freshly recruited villain doesn't fit in. Major Blood is all too willing to cooperate as you see his turret swivel around and he gives a little a little chuckle. We see a reticule zoned in right on Destro's face. He'll never know what hit him. Baroness, of course, is driving Major Blood's vehicle and can see that Major Blood is changing his target.
Why is Blood swiveling his turret? He's aiming at. No.
Baroness realizes what's happening.
I won't let you.
She hard turns the wheel and banks into looks like a parked truck. It flips the his tank altogether. Yeah, again, I'm just going to point out that the his tank looks very crazy here. Like there's a weird line that separates the canopy. They still are drawing them very wide. It looks like you could fit several people into it. It careens with this tank with a huge explosion. You can see fuel is starting to leak out of the tank. The his tank itself is, I guess it's on its, tips over on its side. Panel of the fuel leaking out. Major Blood gets out of the turret. Somehow survives. The tank flips on its side, but he must have worn his seatbelt somehow. And he starts to climb out.
Leaking all over. I'd better get out of here before it hits the manifold.
Baroness's glasses have been knocked off. The canopy is shattered. She looks pretty rough.
Help me. I'm trapped and I think my leg is broken.
Blood looks back for a second and then just runs away. Doesn't even give her a toodaloo. Not even a farewell poem.
Blood. Don't leave me here. Please. Blood.
You see her hand reaching out of the canopy. Major Blood! Great sound effect panel where the words are where the graphic are, with a huge blam across the bottom end as the his tank explodes. On the right hand side of the panel, the his tank is exploding, and all the way on the far left you see Baroness's glasses get thrown away, leaving no doubt that she definitely has just got the raw end of that deal. The other his tank with Cobra Commander barrels through the Wolverine and knocks it off its side. You see the treads falling apart, the Joes dive off, including CoverGirl, to safety. Abandoned Wolverine. That was Cobra Commander and Destro in that his tank, and they're getting away. But who was in the hiss that blew up? Hawk, Clutch, and Scarlet have arrived in the Vamp just in time as they are just behind that his tank, which is speeding off at a pretty good speed. You know, the word tank throws me off here, but I can't imagine that the top speed of a his tank is much. Certainly doesn't seem like it could keep up with a actual Jeep, which is made to go at an aggressive speed. Jaren, you're more military and knowledgeable than I. Do you have any thoughts on a treaded vehicle basically hauling ass across the street here?
I mean, they make some of them that really move, and I can't speak to like the ergonomics of the way they designed these treads, but I mean, I don't think there's any way that it would be able to outpace the Vamp.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't surprise me if it can go highway speeds at least, like, really get up going 50, 60 miles an hour.
That's interesting to me. I guess that checks out in line with this because, as we're going to see, the Vamp is going to kind of span that distance pretty aggressively. Looks like our boys took quite a pasting here, Hawk. Should we stop in? Negative. We stay on that his tank until we run it to ground. As they're passing by the Joes that were knocked off the Wolverine. Don't worry about it, Hawk. We'll commandeer the next set of wheels that rolls by. As Cobra Commander is flying by, making it even more comical that they could get away, they stop to pick up Dr. Venom.
Cobra Commander, wait for me! It's Dr. Venom!
That he hops on the back where Destro is.
That traitor, Scarface almost. Say, what's wrong with Destro? Destro! Somebody has to man the gun turret! Destro!
Destro is just looking off in the distance. In the last panel on this page, you can see the reflection of the exploding his tank as he is, has come face to face with the realization that the Baroness has likely died in this explosion. Venom runs around the side as Destro is kind of taking his misery out. He's got his head tucked under his arm. He's kind of beating his fist against it. His tank opens from underneath instead of the way the toy opens where the glass slides out, almost like a jaw, like the bottom of the teeth would open up, and Cobra Commander steps up. Another interesting redesign of how his tank works.
I think that's such a cool idea, though.
I think it's a great idea also.
I wish the toy did that too.
I wish the toy did this as well. Just in general, I wouldn't mind seeing his tank redesigned to be a little bit bigger. I think it would be real cool. Maybe even just to
be kind of like the Night Raven that drops down.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And just like a Night Raven, they wouldn't hold firm anymore over the years. They just they droop down like my actual mouth does from old age and bad bones.
He's overreacting to the death of our comrade, the Baroness. You take the controls and drive. I'll man the turret.
All that over the Baroness. Doesn't he realize that love is simply overestimating the difference between any one given woman and another?
Happy Valentine's Day from Dr. Venom. Sheesh. So
I've bought those G.I. Joe Valentines before, but I think they missed a great opportunity to make some of these.
Yeah, Dr. Venom's definitely got the hard logic when it comes to love. The Vamp is in hot pursuit behind it, is opening fire on them. Step on it, Clutch. We've almost got them. Everybody's backing back where they go in the histake, and they're vrooming off again. Although we can clearly see now that the vamp has truly spanned the distance. No matter how far behind they were, they've caught up, and rightfully so. There's no reason they couldn't have caught up by now.
Bah! Gross sentimentality is such a waste.
Shut up and drive, Venom. Even Cobra Commander can't stand your hard-boiled logic. Wow, that tank pretty near popped a wheelie. Sure would like to see what's revving under her hood. You can do that when you catch up to it. They're driving by the Washington Monument in hot pursuit. No problem, Hawk, but what are you going to do when we catch up? Everything Scarlet's firing at it just bounces off the armor plate. Hawk is like doing some Fast and Furious stuff here. He's got both feet out the door. He's got one hand on the roll bar of the vamp. He's just leaning way out. You just worry about getting close enough, and I'll handle the rest. Hawk makes a little leap from vehicle to vehicle, grabs the back of the Hiss tank.
Venom, I can't swing the turret around fast enough. He's on board the Hiss.
I love this era of G.I. Joe where Hawk is like actively engaged in field activities. It's very cool.
Do something, Venom. He's climbing the turret.
What can I do? I'm driving. Have your friend Destro blind him with his head.
Destro, pull yourself together. I order you to throw this dog off.
Your pal's in a world all his own, Cobra Commander, and that's where I intend to put you. Destro is still like on his knees on the back. He's got his hand in his head. He's just like completely overcome with remorse. Hawk clocks Cobra Commander in the face, which is awesome. We don't really get to see a lot of hands-on Cobra Commander. You know, he's usually pretty elusive enough to avoid this level of conflict. I'm not going to discuss how somebody punching this steel plate would hold up. I don't feel like you would feel that, but I'm willing to suspend the belief that Hawk is such a badass he can put the hurt on him. Cobra Commander's always kind of been a weak, hand-to-hand guy anyway. You never see him. It's a bit like the Joker, you know what I mean? Rarely ever wins a hand-to-hand. If Joker's going up against Batman, he's gonna get it handed to him. I've been waiting to do this for a long time, Mirror Mug. This one's for Snake Eyes. Pops him again in the head. And this, suddenly, Destro's missile rocket glove grabs a hold of Hawk by the shoulder.
Do you have one for me, Hawk?
Destro! Hawk switches his attention to Destro out of necessity. Decided to come back to the land of the living, have you?
Most assuredly. Long enough to send you off to the land of the dead.
As Venom is driving.
Less eloquence and more brutality, Destro! Thrash the pig and throw him under the wheels.
Scarlet is talking from the back of the vamp.
Now give him the left jab jab.
Jab jab.
Cobra Commander is stunned from the punches to the face and just lets out a while Clutch has still got both hands on the wheel driving forward. Let's go, Hawk. Deck the man. All us chickens want to go home. Cool panel where Destro and Hawk are basically punching each other. I'm not 100% sure how this works. Are they both missing? It doesn't look like they both get hit in the face. Are they grazing each other's knuckles? I'm not sure here. You have a thought on this? They're both clearly swinging at each other at point blank range.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything that's more than just like, I guess.
Yeah, maybe they hit each other in the shoulder or something.
They're just it's like WWE. They take their turns, punch.
That's right.
Punch,
just
punch,
go with
punch,
the kayfabe.
punch.
So you're Destro, huh? Excuse me while I dent your face.
Polished beryllium is not so easily dented, Hawk.
Cobra Commander is starting to recover. Oh, got to kill him. Cobra Commander pulls out his gun. That's what I have to do, kill him. He raises the gun on the Hawk and Destro. Yes, but which one? Cool panel where you see half of Cobra Commander's face and half of Destro's face as he's unclear what takes priority, the guy that might undo his leadership or the guy that's been undoing his leadership since the very beginning. Not a hard decision to make ultimately as Cobra Commander fires 3 bullets into the back of Hawk's back. Blam, blam, blam. Hawk falls off with a thud onto the ground as the Hiss tank speeds off. The vamp skids to a stop as Scarlet jumps out of the back. They respond and look at Hawk.
Clutch, is he?
It don't look good, Scarlet. Meanwhile, at the bus terminal, you see someone with a long overcoat getting onto a bus. He sits down on a chair. There's a man reading a paper behind him that says, "City hit by terror, capital under fire." Well, one last panel as this man looks out the window and we see his Scarface unmasked, but his scar very prominent and noticeable. As he looks out the window, he says,
"I'll get you, Dr. Venom."
The end. pretty great issue. Lots of cool stuff happening in this issue. And, a pretty large advancement of plot. I will take note that in the previous issue at the end, it does say something along the lines of someone will die. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with this book well enough to know that Hawk is not dead. So that's a bit of an exaggeration, or a fib, I should say. I mean, unless you count...
How long until Baroness reappears?
Not that long.
Yeah.
But we've probably got maybe about half a year worth of books before we start to see some her popping back up. And I guess unless you count that guy that torpedo harpooned. Next issue, someone dies.
That guy did not make
That's
it.
right. We didn't lie. It was Timmy, the Cobra officer that got harpooned. He never knew what hit him until it was too late.
It was Torpedo's ankles, because walking around in those flippers on land does not feel good.
So, what are your thoughts on this issue overall, Jaron?
I actually really liked this issue. I thought it was really fun. Tripwire appears, so
right. How could you go wrong?
I can't complain there. I'm gonna have to buy a graded copy of this comic. First appearance of Tripwire.
Yeah, as soon as that's gonna go up as soon as the next G.I. Joe movie's made. G.I. Joe Origins Tripwire. I like this book a lot. I'm extremely fond of the Cobra backstabbing, which is always kind of present, but I don't think has ever been as chaotic as it is in this time, where just about everybody is working against everybody else. So a lot of these players aren't around. A year from now, the Cobra hierarchy will have changed considerably from what who we're looking at right now. Yeah, big fan of this. Lots of stuff happening, lots of good development. Not as hard to follow, I think, as some of the other books. It doesn't rely too much on the previous issues, other than the stuff with the ink and the toxin, which I feel like you could probably if you just picked this, if this was your first G.I. Joe issue, I feel like it explains itself well enough that you could kind of pick it up and go on from there. So I do like that a lot.
I've got a random question for you, Greg. Did you ever play the video game The Division?
Yes, it's funny that you should say that, because when we were talking about Poison in the Money, that is something that occurred to me as well. That is a general plot to that, right? They put something out on Black Friday in it.
That's 100%. So G.I. Joe needs some royalties.
They
stole that storyline.
Pretty interesting and honestly a pretty great plan. I don't know if I don't know if the logistics of that pan out, like if any of this scientifically is feasible, but it is a very cool idea, and it makes sense. It would be a very easy way to infect, a tremendous amount of the population. Certainly back when this book was written, money was the only form of currency, basically, other than checks. I guess I'm assuming checkbooks were around back then. So it would have spread probably, 4 times as fast as now.
Yeah. Checkbooks might have been around, but I was not. I was still a decade away from existing.
Yes, and I was too young to write a check or bounce one. So so that's G.I. Joe number...
The point is we're both young, Greg. That's the point.
That's right. Yeah, some of us young at heart. Some of us just straight up young. Okay, so that's going to bring us to the end of G.I. Joe number 16, as that's the end of this episode as well. I'll pull the blurb directly from Postbox the Pit in this issue. We hope you all join us next issue when Major Blood finds himself in big trouble and Snake Eyes and Quinn attempt a daring jailbreak. You won't want to miss Loose Ends. That's 4 weeks away, which I guess technically is in about 30 days. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can do that at Anything Joe's Pod or anythingjoespodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at Anything Joe's Pod. You can find our YouTube channel just at Anything Joe's. Thanks so much for listening to us today, and we look forward to talking to you again in just 2 short weeks, where anything's available for discussion here on Anything Joe's.